and charms which I gaze on so fondly today were to change by tomorrow and flee from my arms, just like fairy gifts fading away, thou wouldst still be adored as this moment thou art. Let thy loveliness fade as it will, and around the dear ruins each wish of my heart will entwine itself ardently still. Welcome to the presentation of Dylan Thomas's A Child's Christmas in Wales. Written almost 40 years ago, it has become one of our most endearing Christmas stories of our times.
You may want to come in a little bit closer. Now, one Christmas was so much like another in those years around the Seatown corner, now and out of all sound, except the distant speaking of the voices I sometimes hear a moment before sleep, that I can never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12, or for 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6. All the Christmases rolled down toward the two-tongued sea like a cold and headlong moon bundling down the sky that was our street. And they stopped at the rim of the ice-edged fish-freezing seas. And I plunge my hands in the snow and bring out whatever I can find. In goes my hand into that wool-white, bell-tongued ball of holidays resting at the rim of the carol-singing sea. And out come Mrs. Prothero and the firemen. Now, it was on the afternoon of the day of Christmas Eve, and I was in Mrs. Prothero's garden waiting for cats with her son, Jim. It was snowing. It was always snowing at Christmas. December in my memory is as white as Lapland, though there were no reindeer, but there were cats. Patient, cold and callous, our hands wrapped in socks, we waited to snowball the cats. Oh, sleek and long as jaguars, and horrible whiskered, spitting and snarling, they would slink and sidle over the white back garden walls. And the lynx-eyed hunters, Jim and I, oh, fur-capped and moccasin trappers from Hudson's Bay off Mumble's Road, would hurl our deadly snowballs at the whites of their eyes. The wise cats never appeared. We were so still, Eskimo-footed Arctic marksmen in the muffling silence of the eternal snows. Eternal, ever since Wednesday. That we never heard Mrs. Prothero's first cry from her igloo at the bottom of the garden, or if we heard it at all, it was to us like the far-off challenge of our enemy and prey, the neighbor's polar cat. But soon the voice grew louder. "Fire! Fire!" cried Mrs. Prothero as she beat the dinner gong. And we ran down the garden with the snowballs in our arms toward the house, and smoke indeed was pouring out of the dining room, and the gong was bumbulating. And Mrs. Prothero was announcing ruin like a town crier in Pompeii. Oh, this was better than all the cats in Wales standing in the wall in a row. We bounded into the house, laden with snowballs, and stopped at the open door of the smoke-filled room. Something was burning, all right. Perhaps it was Mr. Prothero, who always slept there after midday dinner with a newspaper over his face. But he was standing in the middle of the room saying, "Oh, a fine Christmas, a fine Christmas," and smacking at the smoke with his slipper.
Call the fire brigade!
Cried Mrs. Prothero as she beat the gong and beat the gong. "They won't be there," said Mr. Prothero. "It's Christmas, woman." There was no fire to be seen, only clouds of smoke, and Mr. Prothero standing in the room waving his slipper as if he were conducting. "Do something," he said. And we threw all our snowballs into the smoke. I think we missed Mr. Prothero, and ran out of the house to the telephone box.
Let's call the police as well.
Oh, and the ambulance.
And Ernie Jenkins. He likes fires.
But we only called the fire brigade. And soon the fire engine came, and 3 tall men in helmets brought a hose into the house, and Mr. Prothero got out just in time before they turned it on. Nobody could have had a noisier Christmas Eve. And when the firemen turned off the hose and were standing in the wet, smoky room, Jim's aunt, Miss Prothero, came downstairs and peered in at them. Jim and I waited very quietly to hear what she would say. She said the right thing always. She looked at the 3 tall firemen in their shining helmets, standing among the smoke and cinders and dissolving snowballs, and she said, "Would you like anything to read?" Years and years and years ago, when I was a boy, when there were wolves in Wales, and birds the color of red flannel petticoats whisked past the harp-shaped hills. Oh, when we sang and wallowed all day and all night in caves that smelt like Sunday afternoons in damp front farmhouse parlors. And we chased with the jawbones of deacons, chased the English and the bears. Before the motor car, before the wheel even, before the duchess-faced horse, when we rode the daft and happy hills bareback, it snowed and it snowed.
It snowed last year, too. I made a snowman, and my brother knocked it down. And I knocked my brother down. And then we had tea.
But that was not the same snow. Our snow was not only shaken from whitewashed buckets down the sky, it came shoaling out of the ground and swam and drifted out of the arms and hands and bodies of the trees. Oh, snow grew overnight like a pure and grandfather moss, minutely white-ivied the walls and settled on the postman, opening the gate like a dumb thunderstorm of white torn Christmas cards.
Were there postmen then, too?
Oh, yes, with sprinkling eyes and wind-cherried noses on spread frozen feet, they crunched up to the doors and mittened on them manfully. But all that the children could hear was a ringing of bells.
You mean that the postman went rat-a-tat-tat and the doors rang?
I mean that the bells that the children could hear were inside them.
I only hear thunder sometimes, never bells.
Oh, there were church bells, too.
Inside them?
No, in the bat-black, snow-white belfries. Oh, tugged by bishops and storks. And they rang their tidings over the bandaged town, over the frozen foam of the powder and ice cream hills. It seemed that all the churches boomed for joy under my window, and the weathercocks crew for Christmas, on our fence.
Get back to the postman.
Oh, they were just ordinary postmen, fond of walking in dogs and Christmas in the snow. And they knocked on the doors, oh, with blue knuckles.
Ours has got a black knocker.
And then they stood on the white welcome mat in the little drifted porches and they huffed and they puffed, making ghosts with their breath, and jogged from foot to foot like small boys wanting to go out.
And then the presents?
And then the presents, after the Christmas box. Oh, and the cold postman, with a rose on his button nose, tingled down the tea tray slithered run of the chilly glinting hill. He went in his icebound boots like a man on fishmonger's slabs. Oh, he wagged his bag like a frozen camel's hump, dizzily turned the corner on one foot, and by God, he was gone.
Get back to the presents.
Oh, there were the useful presents. Oh, engulfing mufflers of the old coach days, and mittens made for giant sloths. Oh, and zebra scarfs of a substance like silky gum that could be tug-of-war down to your galoshes. And blinding tam-o'-shanters like patchwork tea cozies, and balaclavas for victims of head-shrinking tribes. And from aunts who always wore wool next to their skin, there were mustached and rasping vests that made you wonder why the aunts had any skin left at all. And once, I had a little crocheted nose bag from an aunt now, alas, no longer whinnying with us, and pictureless books in which small boys, though warned with quotations not to, would skate on Farmer Giles' pond, and did, and drowned. And books that told me everything about the wasp, except why.
Go on to the useless presents.
Oh, bags of moist and many-colored jelly babies, and a folded flag, and a false nose, and a tram conductor's cap, and a machine that punched tickets and rang a bell. Oh, never a catapult. Oh, once, by mistake that no one could explain, a little hatchet, and a celluloid duck that made, when you pressed it, a most unduck-like sound. Oh, kind of a mewing moo that an ambitious cat might make who wished to be a cow. Oh, and a painting book, yes, a painting book in which I could make the grass, the trees, the sea, and the animals any color I chose. And still the dazzling sky blue sheep are grazing in the red field under the rainbow-billed and pea-green birds. And there were hard-boileds, toffee, fudge in all sorts, crunches, cracknels, humbugs, glaciers, marzipan, and Welsh, butter Welsh for the Welsh, and troops of bright tin soldiers who, if they could not fight, could always run, and snakes and families and happy ladders and easy hobby games for little engineers, complete with instructions. Oh, easy for Leonardo da Vinci. And a whistle, oh, a whistle to make the dogs bark, to wake up the old man next door, to beat his stick against the wall to make our picture fall off the wall. And a packet of cigarettes. Ah, you put one in your mouth, and you stood at the corner of the street, and you waited for hours in vain for an old lady to come along and scold you for smoking a cigarette, and then with a smirk you ate it. And then it was breakfast under the balloons.
Were there uncles like in our house?
Uncles? There are always uncles at Christmas, the same uncles. And on Christmas mornings, with dog-disturbing whistle and sugar fags, I would scour the squatched town for the news of the little world and find always a dead robin by the white post office or by the deserted swings. Perhaps, yes, a robin, all but one of his fighters out. Men and women wading or scooping back from chapel with taproom noses and wind-bust cheeks, all albinos, huddled their stiff black jarring feathers against the irreligious snow. Mistletoe hung from the gas brackets in all the front parlors. Oh, and there was sherry and walnuts and bottled beer and crackers by the dessert spoons, and cats in their furabouts watched the fires, and the high-heaped fire spat, all ready for the chestnuts and the mulling pokers. And some few large men sat in the front parlors without their collars, uncles almost certainly, trying their new cigars, holding them out judiciously at arm's length, returning them to their mouths and coughing and then holding them out again as though waiting for the explosion. And some few small ants, not wanted in the kitchen, nor anywhere else for that matter, sat on the very edges of their chairs, poised and brittle, afraid to break, like faded cups and saucers. Not many those mornings trod the piling streets. Oh, an old man always, fawn-bowlered, yellow-gloved, and at this time of year with spats of snow, would take his constitutional to the white bowling green and back as he would take it on any day, Doomsday or Christmas Day. And sometimes two hale young men, oh, big pipes blazing, no overcoats, and wind-blown scarves, would trudge unspeaking down to the forlorn sea to work up an appetite, to blow away the fumes, who knows, to walk into the waves until nothing of them was left but the two curling smoke clouds of their inextinguishable briars. And then I would be slap-dashing home. The gravy smell of the dinners of others, the bird smell, the brandy, oh, the pudding and the mince, coiling up to my nostrils, when out of a snow-clogged side lane would come a boy, the spit of meself, oh, with a pink-tipped cigarette and the violet cast of a black eye, oh, cocky as a bullfinch, leering all to himself. Oh, I hated him on sight and sound. And I would be about to put my dog whistle to my lips and blow him off the face of Christmas, when suddenly he, with a violent wink, put his whistle to his lips. Oh, and blew so stridently, so high, so exquisitely loud, that gobbling faces, their faces all bulged with goose, would press against the tinseled windows the whole length of the white, echoing street. Now for dinner we had, oh, turkey and blazing pudding, and after dinner the uncles sat in front of the fire, loosened all the buttons, put their large moist hands over their watch chains, groaned a little, and slept. And mothers, aunts, and sisters, oh, scuttled to and fro, bearing tureens. Auntie Bessie, who had already been frightened twice by a clockwork mouse, whimpered at the sideboard and had some elderberry wine. The dog was sick. Auntie Dossie had to have 3 aspirin, but Auntie Hannah, who liked port, stood in the middle of the snowbound backyard, oh, singing like a big bosom thrush. And I would blow up balloons to see how big they would blow up too. And when they burst, which they always did, all the uncles jumped and rumbled. And in the rich and heavy afternoon, the uncles breathing like dolphins and the snow descending, I would sit among festoons and Chinese lanterns and nibble dates and try to make a model man of war, following the instructions for little engineers. And out would come something which might look like a seagoing tram car. Or I would go out, my bright new boots squeaking into the white world, onto the seaward hill, to call on Jim and Dan and Jack, and to pad through the still streets, leaving huge, deep footprints on the hidden pavement.
Perhaps people will think there's been hippos.
Hippos? Oh, what would you do if you saw a hippo coming down our street?
I'd go like this, bang! And then I'd throw him over the railings and roll him down the hill and tickle under his arm. And then he'd wag his tail.
Well, what would you do if you saw two hippos? Oh, iron-flanked and bellowing he-hippos, clanked and battered through the scudding snow toward us as we pass Mr. Daniel's house.
Let's post Mr. Daniel a snowball through his letterbox.
Oh, let's write things in the snow.
That's right. Mr. Daniel is a spaniel all over his front lawn.
Or we walked on the white shore.
Can the fishes see it's snowing?
The silent, one-clouded heavens drifted onto the sea, and now we were snow-blind travelers lost on the North Hills, and vast dewlap dogs with flasks around their necks ambled and shambled up to us, baying, baying. And we returned home through the poor streets, where only a few children fumbled with bare red fingers in the wheel-rutted snow, and catcalled after us, their voices fading away as we trudged uphill into the cries of the dock birds and the hooting of ships out in the whirling bay. And then, at tea, the recovered uncles would be jolly, and the ice cake loomed in the center of the table like a marble grave. Auntie Hannah laced her tea with rub because it was only once a year. Bring out the tall tales now that we told by the fire as the gaslight bubbled like a diver. Oh, ghosts wooed like owls in the long nights when I dared not look over my shoulder. Animals lurked in the cubbyhole under the stairs where the gas meter ticked. And I remember that we went singing carols once when there wasn't the shaving of a moon to light the flying streets. At the end of a long road was a drive that led to a large house. And we stumbled up the darkness of the drive that night, each one of us afraid, each one holding a stone in his hand, and all of us too brave to say a word. The wind through the trees made noises as of old and unpleasant, and maybe web-footed men wheezing in caves. We reached the black bulk of the house.
What shall we give them? Hark the herald?
No. Good King Wenceslas, I'll count three. 1, 2, 3, and we began to sing, our voices high and seemingly distant in the snow-felted darkness around the house that was occupied by nobody we knew. Oh, we stood close together near the dark door. 1, 2, 3. Good King Wenceslas, look out on the feast of Stephen, where the snow lay round about, cold and crisp and even. Oh, and then, a small, dry voice, like the voice of someone who has not spoken for a long time, joined our singing. Oh, a small, dry, eggshell voice from the other side of the door. A small, dry voice through the keyhole. Good king, what's lost? Looked out on the feast of Stephen. And when we stopped running, we were in front of our house. Oh, the front room was lovely. Balloons floated under the hot water bottle, gulping gas. Oh, everything was good again and shone over the town.
Perhaps it was a ghost.
Oh, perhaps it was trolls.
Let's go back inside and see if there's any jelly left.
And we did that. Always on Christmas night, there was music. An uncle played the fiddle, a cousin sang Cherry Ripe, and another uncle sang Drake's drum. It was very warm in the little house. Auntie Hannah, who had got onto the parsnip wine, sang a song about bleeding hearts and death. And then another, in which she said her heart was like a bird's nest. And then everybody laughed again, and then I went to bed. And looking through my bedroom window, out into the moonlight, and the unending smoke-colored snow, I could see the lights in all the other windows of the houses on our hill, and hear the music rising from them up the long, steadily falling night. I said some words to the close and holy darkness, and then I slept. And this is the song that, one of the songs that maybe Auntie Hannah sang out in the backyard. Believe me, if all those endearing young charms which I gaze on so fondly today were tomorrow and free from my arms, just like fairy gifts fading away, thou wouldst still be adored as this moment thou art. Let thy loveliness fade as it will, and around the dear ruins each wish of my heart then twine itself ardently still, wouldst entwine itself ardently still. That was